for our big set piece discussion, where we're going to start getting very practical. We're going to have examples of ESG in action, what's worked. Maybe we might even discuss some things that people have tried that haven't worked and why. And possibly, if we have a bit of time, end up with some very practical advice from our experts as to how you might get started. So let me, without too much ado, introduce them, and then I'll ask them to introduce themselves. First of all, Merrill Lynch from Lynch Plant Haulage. Welcome, Merrill.
Thank you.
And a big thanks to Peter Beach from Genquip Groundhog. You may have seen us chatting earlier on before lunch. My especial thanks actually to Peter, because you very kindly stood in at the last moment, as did Huw Longton from the European Rental Association, because Michel Petitjean, who was going to be on our panel, had COVID at the last moment. And last but by no means least, I'm delighted to welcome Rachel Preen from Prolectric. I think they all deserve a round of applause. Thank you, guests, very much indeed. We might as well just get straight in. And really, I think I'll ask you to introduce yourselves and your organisations first, just so that we know who you are, what angle you might be taking, you know, what your thoughts are, what your perspective is. And since you're closest to me, Rachel, let's start with you.
Okay, so yes, I'm Rachel Preen, and I'm the Commercial Director for Prolectric. I think everyone here probably already knows Prolectric, and Dom did a great job earlier of giving a quick synopsis of the company. But we're the off-grid renewable power specialists. So most people know us because we put lights on top of the renewable power, but we can put anything. Some of our customers have CCTVs on top, or it might be a telecommunication point. But we also have solar hybrid generators. You probably saw one as you drove in this morning. It looks fantastic. I know I'm biased, but I think the kit looks spectacular. We've got some really clever engineers that pull together our equipment. And yes, just very proud.
I have to ask you, Rachel, because we were talking last night, and you were so passionate and so enthusiastic about why you came into this industry. Yeah. Just share it with everyone briefly.
Okay, well, I've only ever worked for purpose-led businesses, so I've only ever worked for organisations that do good. So this topic is already a bit confusing for me in a way, because we're dissecting it here as if it's something that is not what you all do. So I can't get my head around that everyone doesn't just do good all the time, because I've only ever done that my whole career. So formerly, before working at Prolectric, I worked for Ecotricity, which is the world's first green renewable energy company. And I loved that job. I cried my eyes out when I left, actually cried. And Chris Williams, who's the current MD for Prolectric, well, he is the MD, he is Prolectric. When I met him, when he asked me to come and meet with him, it was, the specification looked really boring, and I thought, why would I move into construction? Why has this guy called me? I went to meet with Chris, and it's Chris and the people and the purpose of the company. Back to, was it Daney? Daney. What Daney said earlier really resonated with me about that purpose, about why everyone comes into work. Chris's whole career, just like mine, has been committed to the environment and improving the environment and looking after people and planet. And then your profit always looks after itself. So I came from Ecotricity, joined Prolectric. I can't believe even now that I left Ecotricity, actually. I'm still really good friends with Dale, but I joined the sector because you're kind of like 6 years behind energy. And when I joined energy, it was a bit like this sector. It's kind of like going through digital transformation, lots of pressure, and everyone's talking about these buzzwords, ESG, CSR, blowing everyone's minds. And actually, it's not that complicated at all, I don't think. I think it's really straightforward, but I just think everyone gets intimidated because it sounds really boring, starchy, and full of jargon. And I hope after today, after we've had our discussion, everyone will feel really invigorated to just take this under their belts and look at what you're already doing, the good stuff you're already doing, and you can start reporting on it, and then you can say, oh, I'm already doing ESG, which is just a really horrible word, acronym, in my opinion.
That's another lovely theme that's come through the day, is actually reporting, getting the story out there, messaging, PRing, whatever you want to call it, telling people about it. So we'll definitely come back to that, thanks. Huw, I did say that you'd very nobly stood in at the last minute. Have you been on panel discussions before?
Not for for a while.
Well, you're very, very welcome.
It's been a few years,
We're
I have to
delighted
say.
to have you. You're with the European Rental Association. Tell us a bit about yourself and the ERA.
Yep, so I'm the communications manager for the European Rental Association, and I have been for 3 years now. And we're based in Brussels, but we live a little bit across Germany, France, and then Belgium. For those who don't know us, we were set up back in 2006 by some of the leading European rental companies, plus associations, rental associations. And so our core membership is really, the rental companies and the associations. We have 15 associations across 14 countries. But we also have suppliers, so the OEMs, the equipment manufacturers, the software companies. And we work through committees or working groups, through things, technical issues, sustainability, which is a broad term, obviously, as we know, promotion, and we have a future group, and we've been working recently on things like cybersecurity as well. So we work across a whole range of issues, and we really work with our members to understand what they need, what the industry needs, what's useful.
And I know that you've got a lot of practical things to tell us, which is terrific. We'll come to that in just a moment. Peter, again, thank you very much indeed for joining at the last moment, as it were. Just in case people don't know, tell us a wee bit about yourself and your company.
Okay, I'm Peter Beach. I'm responsible for sales, marketing, and anything sort of outbound out of the Groundhog factory. I've been at Genquip Groundhog for 16 years and in the sort of accommodation industry for 20 years. I started as a very, very young child. So really within the accommodation welfare sector, it's very much at the forefront of carbon reduction, and ourselves and our competitors are very much at the forefront of how we're going to reduce carbon on site, and ESG is obviously the format of that.
We'll really want to hear your insights. Merrill, I'm going to start with you in just a moment, but before I do, as if you need an introduction, I would like you to introduce yourself and your company, just for those one or two who may not know.
Yes, so I'm Merrill Lynch and I'm a director at Lynch Plant, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about a subject that I'm really passionate about. The reason I'm so passionate about this subject is because of my children. So just the other day, my daughter Jocelyn, who's 5 years old, she came up to me and she said, "Daddy, you're leaving the tap turned on too long. You're killing the world." Now, I thought nothing of this at the time. But later that evening, when I sat and reflected, I thought to myself, you know what? She is absolutely right. We are responsible for the condition that we leave our earth in. So I want to make sure that I do my bit, and everyone at Lynch Plant does our bit to make sure that we leave our world in a better place. And I'd like to tell you a bit more. So I'd like to tell you a bit about what Lynch are doing. So we set ourselves an ambitious plan to be net zero carbon by 2040. And it's a three-pronged attack, focusing on our fleet, our depots, and our supply chain. And I want to focus on a milestone that's coming up shortly for us. So in 2025, 80% of our HGV fleet will be HVO or alternative fuels. 100% of our car and van fleet purchases will be hybrid or electric. 100% of our heavy excavators and dozers will be machine control technology ready. And 100% of our operators and lorry drivers will be eco-driver trained.
100%?
100%, yes. For our depots, that means 30% will be powered by renewable energy. We'll have rain capture tanks at every facility, solar panels at every depot, and full recycling throughout the depots. And for our supply chain, that means they must replicate our ambitious plans to be net zero carbon by 2040 in order to keep working with us.
Okay.
In order to keep working with us. So we've got lots of plans, milestones ahead, and very excited to be here.
Wow, thank you for that. We're going to go into one or two examples later. Do any immediate illustrations, stories, examples spring to mind that you can tell us of how you, because we've talked a lot in principle today, haven't we? About how you actually did it.
Right, so I'd like to share with you an article that I've read recently that really resonated with me. And it's about Walker's Crisps, and it relates to what you're talking about. So Walker's Crisps discovered a flaw in their incentivisation model. They were paying the farmers per tonne for the potatoes. And what the farmers were doing is they were keeping these potatoes warmed up in a humid shed. Then when Walkers got the potatoes, they had to fry them longer using extra energy. So when they discovered this, they came together and they said to each other, this doesn't seem right. You're using energy heating up the potatoes to get a better price, and we're having to fry them longer. Surely there's a better way here. And there was a better way. So Walkers now pay the farmers according to the water content of the potatoes. And as a result of that, they saved themselves £225,000 a year, and a huge saving to the environment. Now, you might wonder why I'm telling you about this. Yeah. What's crisps got to do with construction? Well, it's got everything to do with it, because it's not about crisps and it's not about construction. It's about leadership and collaboration, and it's about finding a better way. So we've been finding a better way by working with our operators and our customers. We were on a highways project last year, and we said to our operators, why are you excessively idling every day? And they said, well, we need to keep warm in our cabs, and we need to look busy. The customer won't be happy if we're not working. So we took this information to the customer and said, what do you think about this? And they said, well, this is ridiculous. Of course we don't expect your drivers to leave the machine turned on, looking busy, wasting fuel. So what they suggested to us was putting up extra welfare facilities along the highway. So when the operator is not needed, they can go to the welfare, keep warm, turn their machine off. When they're needed again, they can come out and carry on with their work. Now, this initiative saved the customer over £300,000 in fuel.
Over what sort of period?
Over a year.
Okay.
And we took it even further. We gave the operators a leaderboard demonstrating their economic driving performance. We rewarded those at the top of the leaderboard, and we encouraged those at the bottom to improve their performance. And it's amazing what happens when you put a leaderboard in front of 50 operators. It's created a lot of positive energy there.
Yeah,
and
totally.
A significant reduction to carbon, hundreds of tons of carbon reduced.
Practical story, and you've told us how you did it.
Yep.
Let's just find out from everybody else. Peter, similar illustration for us?
We have so many illustrations of if you want carbon reduction, but there's one thing in the market. I mean, there's tens of thousands of welfare in the UK hire market. You wouldn't believe. I would suggest there's over 100,000 welfare units in the UK market, all with diesel generators on. You count the hours and running. It's a huge amount of carbon emission. But I want to step back to what we're doing to try and reduce our carbon at source, and also our ESG. So we collaborated with the University of Sheffield at the beginning of the year to help us along the way of our carbon energy plan. And it's become a really, really interesting project. We're coming to the end of the first phase of the project where they're going to present us with the number. I think I'll find out the number tomorrow.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is what the embedded carbon is of the Groundhog factory. How they went about that, it was quite interesting. They used all these professors and doctors of sustainability and a master's student who came down to the factory, and they interviewed the production manager, they interviewed the managing director, the procurement manager, the paint buyer. So they found out exactly all our processes in the factory. And then they also then went out and interviewed our customers, which I thought was amazing, and our customers' customers. So they ended up phoning up Balfour Beatty sustainability team, Morgan Sindall sustainability team, to find out how a welfare unit was used in the market. And they've come back now with this amazing presentation, which for us is the start of our journey to reducing our carbon impact at the factory, not obviously out on site, and that's going to come. But the first practical thing we did about 14 months ago, we put 95 solar panels on Factory 2. Factory 2 is a facility where there's no welding, no heavy machinery. It's the fit out, like a car manufacturing plant where they just fit out the welfare units. And over the first 12 months, we found a 33% reduction in our electricity bill. So it's all run from the solar.
And was that net allowing for the investment?
No, not at all.
Because that always seems to be the tripping point, doesn't it? I'm guessing your work with Sheffield University was possibly
They're
done on a mutually pro bono basis, was it?
Well, we paid them, of course, for their facility, but what's going to come out of it is going to be much better.
So in both instances, there's been an investment first, which is what worries a lot of people, I think.
Well, we're just building a new factory now, which is going to be ready this time next year. And part of that is the area where we do all the welding and the heavy fabrication. And we're investing in 568 solar panels on that factory roof, which is, for as an investment, it's enormous.
Well, we'll definitely come back to that one as well. Huw, I know from the European Rental Association point of view, there are at least 3 very practical projects that you're undertaking. Tell us a bit about them.
So we've been working for quite a few years now on not just the environmental side, but the social side and governance as well. And I could maybe give a bit of context in what's happening in the EU. So their industrial growth strategy is very much a green growth strategy. So the European Green Deal, with the headline sort of 55% decarbonisation by 2030 and then net zero by 2050, I think. But within that, there's a whole range of things to do with sustainable finance and reporting and due diligence. And they're very much in the process of sort of legally defining what ESG, sustainable, whatever you want to call it, what it really means. And they're trying to harmonise, across the member states, what companies will have to do effectively, and how they will be reporting. So our tools are partly coincidentally sort of aligned with that, which is very good. I mean, initially we saw as well that it's an opportunity for the industry. We started looking, I think, back in 2017, 2018, into the carbon footprint of equipment. And so rather than focusing on utilization, looking at the whole life cycle. So we had a study out, looking at 10 pieces of equipment, different size and function. And it showed that 30 to 50, you can have a 30 to 50% reduction in by renting, depending on usage, of course. But looking at different models, it showed you could make quite a big difference through renting. So from that, we built a carbon footprint calculator.
Which is available to your members?
It's free for anybody around the world to use. We see it as a promotional tool. We see that by focusing on the whole life cycle, and particularly things like transportation, so logistics is a key thing, because depots are often very close to a site. And the pickup and drop off is much more optimized. But there are other things like tend to have better equipment, more up-to-date equipment. And maintenance tends to be, better, not always, I guess, but depending. But rental companies really have an advantage there. So it's a work in progress as a tool, but it's going to be upgraded, and then very soon it'll be upgraded and expanded, so it can be used for whole projects, for a whole construction site, or a whole fleet, as well as modular space and hand tools. And then probably it could be fitted through an API. Companies could use it as part of their offer to customers as well. But then we have tools on sustainable suppliers as well as reporting. So looking at the different KPIs
Practical
you
tools
can have.
that people can use?
It's all free.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
all free to use, so you can take it as it is. You can cherry pick. It's up to you. The idea is it's particularly for smaller companies they don't have the time or resources to really invest in these things. It can be very difficult.
That's one thing that's come out
But
of
it's
our
kind of
discussion so far.
a thing they can just take and they can see what they can do.
Really, really practical. And your KPIs initiative? The third one?
Yeah, so we looked, our consultant talked to rental companies to see what they were reporting on. They looked at the SDGs, and other things, and basically came up with this framework where if you don't do anything, you can see what you should really do as a minimum. But if you want to build on that, you can get to a good practice or then sort of best practice as well.
So is that a sort of starter tool that would be available to everyone?
It's a starter tool, yeah. I mean, it's very, very easy. You have a list, you have a definition of what it means.
We like easy. That's lovely. We will come back to that. Rachel, your examples of what you're doing, what's really worked, a really good uplifting example.
course.
After today's news, we need a bit of uplifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that it's probably all about starting with the benchmarking. I don't really like jargon, so I try to keep it jargon-free. But a good way, because it's complicated, because there's loads of different elements to it, I like order and sense and logic. And so it'd be nice if you could organise all of your activities beneath some sort of key areas to help you to understand what it is you can actually do. So I'm going to get to the point, sorry.
No, this is good stuff, because I'm with you on being organised.
I'm going to use this booklet, which I can't take any credit for because it was actually done before I joined Prolectric, but it was a way for the organisation to assess where it is today. This will cost, to get this done, and I'll happily share this with you afterwards, everybody, if you'd like to know more about it, but to have this actually assessment done for your organisation would cost you less than having an advert put in, in one of the publications, for example. It's not going to cost you much money at all.
So what are we talking? A couple of hundreds?
Maybe a little bit more than a couple of hundred, yeah. Advertising's gone up a bit. But
long time since
it's going to cost you less. It would cost you less than £10,000, and it would cost probably less than £5,000, but I can't be sure. It probably depends on the size of your company, actually. But what it does is it categorises all the activities you're doing under the environmental activities, workplace, which is your people, communities, and then philanthropy. Oh, I always struggle with that one.
Especially after lunch.
Oh, yeah. So all of the activities that you're doing, it's documented in it and audited, and then you've got somewhere to go. So you can say, oh, this is what we're doing already, and this is where we can improve, and then you have goals on the back of it. So I'll give you some examples in here. This is my way of cheating, so I didn't have to revise. Inside our booklet, for example, so first of all, looking at the environment. So we have solar panels on top of our rooftop. I mean, it'd be really embarrassing if we didn't, to be honest, given that we are the solar pros. It'd be really awkward. We have solar panels all over our factory rooftops, and it means that we aren't paying or taking from the grid, brown power. 33% of all of our generation is from the rooftops. So that's a great start. Also, probably most importantly, I should have said this one first, is that the kit that we create and we give to our customers, either through sales, so either the kit that we manufacture and sell to the customer, or through the rehire fleet. So our entire job is to look after the rental company. So when you guys have got too much demand for your clients, we'll then rent you our kit so you can rent it out to your customers. When you look at the combined total of carbon that's been saved just by people using our lights and solar-powered generators, solar hybrid generators, it's around 25 million kilograms. Thank you, Dom. I knew I'd get that one wrong. I told him not to let me get that one wrong. Kilograms of carbon, which is around about £9 million worth of diesel as well. So just to give you an idea of the actual pound saving. Because, I mean, you mentioned cost many times, and it keeps coming up today. I don't think anyone in the room can actually afford not to do this, by the way. So it probably is irrelevant how much it's going to cost to do, because if you don't do it in 5 years, you won't have anything to do. So there's just a couple of practical things. Create products that save fossil fuels being burned, and also put solar panels on the rooftop. But also you can even just put blocks in the toilets. I know this sounds weird. I can't think of the actual the special word that they use in the report, or what we're supposed to call it. But you can have these blocks that are put in your toilet, which means that the flush. I think they're done here as well. I noticed. These are the sort of things that I look for.
Me too. And you can aerate the water as well.
Yeah, and it just means you're just not wasting as much. It's actually really simple. So that's one of the things that we've also documented in here. And then you've got your workplace. What are you doing for your staff? So we have staff engagement surveys that we run, and we ask for anonymised feedback as well, so we can take action. So people can say stuff like, I hate the microwave in the kitchen, which did come back, so we got a new microwave. But for example, you can say anything that you like in here. And there's planting trees, so that's a lovely, I know that everyone seems to think tree planting is the way forward, but it's something. And it also is just really good fun to do together. I actually think this is really good fun. It just sounds really dull because everyone uses all these big jazzy words. It's like almost ostracizing us like finance, isn't it? But actually, it's really enjoyable. And if you've got a board or directors on the board that have really got into this, so Chris and I, of course, are really invested in it. We spent all our education and our careers doing it. But if you've got people at the top who are really passionate about it, your staff are too. So everyone, I'm surrounded all day by people that just want to do good for the environment, want to look after their colleagues. Health and safety, yes, health and safety, but really it's just looking after your colleagues as if they're your family, isn't it? And that's the sort of mantra that the whole culture of the company is just about doing good, not wasting. And that will affect both your top line, because you're going to be so desirable to other businesses, but also your bottom line, because of all the savings that you're making, for example, with the solar or flushing of the water. So I hope there's a few practical...
I love the urge to do good. I get it completely. But there may be some people sitting around here today who says, yeah, we want to do good, but we also have to make money. We have to show a profit.
We're making loads of money.
Tell us more.
That's the truth. So, I mean, I've never worked for an unprofitable company, and I've only ever worked for companies that do good. We only care about the planet, and we only care about people, and then profit always follows. If you're doing good, you get really great, talented people coming to work for your company. I heard in this podcast on the way down, I was doing a bit of revising of the podcast on the drive here, and there was this survey about candidates now. So the graduates, 80% of graduates will not work for an organisation unless it's really doing good. And they're not going to be falling for any BS, you know, like you can't just, somebody mentioned earlier about an organisation that got into trouble. I can't remember.
Yes, earlier this morning.
Yes.
That were claiming they were doing something and
they weren't.
Yeah.
Like graduates will see right through that. And if you want to be attracting like really young, sparky, bright, new, fresh ideas and people, then you're going to have to start being desirable to them. And the only way to do that is to come and be on this journey. I'm not saying that everyone here's not doing this, by the way. I'm not criticising it. I don't know what you're doing. I just got invited along to talk about it. But I'm really passionate about it. And so it's kind of, you know, I would like you to also be as passionate about it, because it must be very boring if you don't care about the environment or people, then it would be a very boring existence. So it's kind of like, let's just do it, you know, and enjoy it as well. We can have fun doing it as well.
We've had four sets of, I think, brilliant examples. Anybody got any thoughts at this stage, or any questions you'd like to ask? More detail on any of those stories? Because as I say, don't wait until the end to ask. Although if you do want to wait until the end, you can at least talk to everybody individually. But now's the moment to stick your hand up if there's anything, or maybe you want to argue the toss. I think we're good to go. Okay, let me ask you this, guys, because thank you so much for those really, really good examples, and we will come back to more really good examples. But not everything in life works perfectly. So I'm now going to ask you to be very honest with me and tell me, are there any initiatives which, for want of a better phrase, one could call ESG initiatives, that you tried that didn't work, or any particular challenges that you had? Because it would be useful for everyone else to know, so that they can know what the pitfalls are and what to avoid. How about you, Merrill?
Yeah, okay. So we did try something a year ago. We gave everyone in the company an environment action day. So we said, right, you can have a day off, go and work with the conservation volunteers and do some good for our planet. It didn't really take off. I think the reason it didn't take off was because not enough of the leaders got involved. I think that would have helped. But I also think people felt they weren't making much of an impact going doing these activities, you know, whatever the conservation activity was, they felt like it wasn't doing much impact. So we're actually going to revisit that, and I'm going to go there. I've not been, I should have done my day, but I'm going to go there, and I'm going to test it out for myself and see if it is something fulfilling and something that, you know, maybe there's 50 people there doing something. That'd be more like it.
So when you revisit it,
and then get that going.
What will you do differently next time that wasn't done last time?
I'm going to check it out myself, and I'm going to check out a few of these conservation activist places, and just make sure that it's exciting and fulfilling, because you won't get the buy-in if it isn't.
Absolutely. And to use Rachel's wonderful word, fun.
It's got to be
We
fun.
do want to bring some fun into life.
Yeah, it's got to be fun, and you've got to feel like you're making an impact.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Did the not so successful version suffer from not having metrics and measurements and
I just think it wasn't fun enough.
Okay.
That's it.
So fun is a really important
It's really
factor.
important. Yeah, it's got to be
People
fun.
embarrassed of using the fun word, but
It's
I think
got
it's
to be.
okay
I think
because
it's one of the most
we all
important
still
words
like
in
it.
the language.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned.
Okay.
I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to have some fun.
And you mentioned that the first time round there wasn't necessarily buy-in from the top. Should these things be top down, bottom up, or a mixture of the two?
Yeah, I think it's more powerful. I think you need both, don't you? But it's really great when you've got people that are really passionate about a subject. That really does.
Okay, well, thanks for that insight. Peter, anything your company tried that didn't work, or had a particular challenge over that you overcame?
It's always difficult to talk about failure because we learn, we don't fail.
Well, I was about to say there is no such thing as failure.
The thing is, within the hire industry, we have to be careful we're not reacting to every single individual request. The government, or whoever they are at the minute, or whatever, always like to use the word race. It's a race to net zero. It's a race to this. And it's like, well, why is it a race? Why does it have to be a race? Why can't we just do the right thing and learn from any sort of... So we've gone down all sorts of, what do you call them, rabbit holes, or whatever, when someone's phone goes, oh, HS2 on this, or so, build it, and you build it, and well, it's not really going to work. It's, in practical terms, it's not going to work. And we've built so many products, and my esteemed colleague probably the same. We've built so many, put them out and go, guess what, they don't work. So we're just wasting our time because we're reacting to instant requests that haven't been looked at properly to see if they actually work. It's just someone on a site has decided they need this widget or this whatever, and we're not doing it anymore.
And of course, in business, the temptation is to say,
we
the
say
answer
yes
is
because
yes, what's the question?
Yeah, they say if you don't do it, I'll go elsewhere. You know, and okay. But the issue is that you get sustainability directors or whatever who are doing a magnificent job, and then the man or the person, or what word can you use these days? The operative who doesn't really care, you know, and then they break it, and because they don't really know how to use it. So all this high-tech kit is going in, and there's no real handover, no toolbox talks of how to actually use this. Because I'll tell you what, if there's a generator in something, the first thing someone's going to do is switch it on, no matter if they need it or not. You know, so that is a big so sort of failure is a learning curve of how we go from where we were to where we want to be. You know, with the lithium and hydrogen and whatever fuel cell technology we're going, because you give an operative a fuel cell in the middle of the Highlands and there's no handover properly, it's perhaps not going to work very well.
So your learning from that was really just to take it slowly, as Damien was saying this morning, baby steps, one step at a time?
Well, we're launching a new range, which of the units is outside, but we're not launching it until next year because we're going to test it through the winter. It's all right saying that something's going to work when the sun's shining, but the clocks go back in 10 days' time or whatever it is, and it's going to be dark. Solar's not particularly brilliant then, is it?
Well, I disagree with that.
I'm talking about welfare.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, when people are plugging in kettles, microwaves, George Foreman grills, fridges, extension cables with the house connected to it, that kind of thing.
Which we'll all be doing this winter.
I know what you mean on your product, it's fine, but on welfare, it's a completely
nice
different...
save, Peter, thank you.
Yeah, completely different kettle of fish.
Huw, things that you've tried and had to abandon or will revisit because they didn't necessarily work? It's all useful grist to the mill for anyone thinking of starting their ESG journey.
Maybe the biggest challenge is uptake of usage of things. If you take the CO2 calculator, for example, a lot of people get stuck on the transport stage because...
Which involves what? Sorry, just explain it to us.
It involves saying what distance your equipment will travel to the site, and what's the load factor, you know, that kind of thing. And so maybe contractors don't think about it. They're like, I don't know, whereas rental companies do. But for us, we don't want to, we could take it out and you could have loads of people instead of like 150, 250 like completed calculations a month, which is around what it is at the moment. Have like 4,000 or something. But yeah, for us, that's a key selling point for the industry, and it's a key part of the carbon footprint. So the challenge there is how do we make that work, and how do you change the culture of the rental customers effectively, that they start thinking about it's not just what happens on the site, it's what happens before and after as well.
So is it partly how do you make the reporting attractive and easy and, dare I say it, fun?
Well, we try to make it as fun as possible, but no, I would also say there's maybe a not full understanding of what it means to have, say, green equipment, maybe, because
and whose responsibility is that?
Well,
I don't mean that rudely. It's a genuine question.
No, it's the people who own it, people who use it. I mean, you can say I'll electrify my fleet, but if you're in Poland, that's probably worse because it's a lot of coal going into the energy grid. If you're in France, it's a lot of nuclear, so it's much cleaner here, for example. Or and then how do you have the charging infrastructure? How do you get are you shipping batteries back and forth from the depot, or how are you doing it? So I think it's another challenge to make people think about the full picture of what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say that's the challenge.
Rachel, something that maybe didn't work or that you might revisit.
Yeah, so I was going to use a similar one to Merrill. So I'm not going to, not that it hasn't been great, but to be honest with you, when I spoke to Chris about this at some length, because I preempted this question, and he is just very pleased with everything with all the initiatives that have been done, the outcomes. So instead, I was thinking about something that has been a bit challenging since because I've only been in this sector for not even a year yet, so I've been with Prolectric for a year. And one thing that we are struggling with is the recruitment. And the reason for that is because I would say we're quite fussy because we need people that are on the same moral compass as us, and that's difficult. And so if you're going to be recruiting within the same areas or the same sort of pool of people, often those people aren't there, so it takes us a very long time to fill. It's already slow, isn't it, to fill jobs? I'm hearing this from everywhere. But we're particularly slow because we want to make sure that the person will be happy with us and we'll be happy too. Because, again, I hate to say fun, but we just love having an enjoyable time at work. We all get on really well and everyone has a nice time. So we don't want to bring somebody in that could jar that. And that, as we all know, culture is so important. The unofficial rules or whatever we want to call it. And I suppose that's been something I found challenging. It's not a surprise, though, because I had it before all my other jobs as well. So when you work in a culture like that, you can only bring people in with that same culture. But I think it's about how we had to reposition all our job ads, for example. So when I joined, it was very engineering-y, manufacturing job ads. So we've repositioned the way that we've framed it all. So we go straight in with the impact that the business is having, what the individual's contribution will be to the environment, to the community, and then it gets into the details of the job, because really what we want is passionate people first, and then the rest we can learn. They can learn the rest, the other bits. So I think that would be one thing that I've found challenging.
And you sort of said how you overcame it, but how in detail did you overcome it, and is it no longer a challenge?
No, it's still definitely a challenge. So how we've overcome it is the job ads by reframing them. We've also started working with some different recruitment agencies to sort of get more of a spread. And we've also looked at outside of the sector. So we're recruiting from outside now to bring people in. To be honest, I've been stealing a few of my old colleagues as well, so because I know how good they are, and so they've come to join. So we've taken quite a few people from energy, which makes a lot of sense, of course. But we're really pleased. Everyone that's onboarded with us, you know, absolutely gold stars. We're just fussy pots, you know. It takes us a long time to actually commit to let somebody in as well. It's got a real family vibe, and I expect that will get even more challenging. Prolectric's growing 60% year on year. It's at a rate of knots, you know, it's absolutely amazing. And we're recruiting so often, so frequently. As you all know, there's some people in here, you've got some very big organizations, and the culture element is one of the hardest to retain, isn't it, as you scale? And so that's probably going to be one of the biggest things for us as a board and as the whole entire team to try and keep hold of. People are really committed to it. You know, we've got some people that have been with the business since it started. Dom, Richard, who are here today, you know, they're really long-standing employees, and they are as protective and passionate about the culture as I am. And I've only been with them for a year, but it's been one of the best years of my entire career.
We can tell.
Yeah.
We can definitely tell. Guess if you bear with me just for a moment, because I particularly want to ask Huw a couple of things about Europe. Much as I don't want to tread on barely healed wounds, I think it's probably worth asking. You mentioned earlier on that Europe was trying to define and build a framework which would be helpful to European rental businesses in practical terms. Are we here in the UK out of that because we can't benefit from it?
Yes.
So I was about to say, sounds like a yes.
No, but there's kind of three things they're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
So one is they're defining what sustainable activities are according to certain criteria. And rental is included, but not in full at the moment. It's not finalized. There seems to have been an oversight, but they missed out all non-road mobile machinery. So a big segment. So we're lobbying for that. But they'll have sometime next year, they'll adopt this list of sustainable activities, which will mean that companies will have to report, for example, on what percentage of their turnover is covered by this taxonomy. And so it will mean, for particularly bigger contractors to begin with, they may think, oh, I can rental as part of that, reporting stage. So we're fairly confident we'll get it in, but it's a work in progress as ever. We're lobbying for it now. And then they have corporate sustainable reporting directive, I think it's called, which is very much defining the metrics, the things like the KPIs you really need to report on. So that will be general, sectoral, and I think company specific. But they're not defined yet.
So if we can't benefit from those, can we somehow, I was about to say steal them, but I didn't mean that. I meant research them, adopt them.
But the final one is due diligence.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Due diligence one, which will give companies a kind of legal responsibility for people and the environment. Yeah. So Europe wants to be a leader in this, in the sense that they probably want it to be adopted around the world and to some extent. It's likely that in the UK you'll have something similar. I would say.
Is that wishful thinking, or do you have some insider information?
No. I do remember seeing that there would be a taxonomy equivalent. From what I understand, who knows now with the government insofar as it really exists. But I imagine a lot of these things will come through, and obviously Europe will be an example which may be copied, as you say. They're also going to do a social taxonomy to go alongside the environmental taxonomy as well. So I don't know what that will look like, but
thank you for that. So Peter, in fact, I will ask all of you, from what you've heard, do you think that is broadly something that we should adopt in this country to support this industry?
100%. It's I think all the trade organisations have a great help, because obviously you've got you can go and talk to the governments where individual companies can't. So I think what you're doing is a great job, and we should all all follow suit. And I really see that as a huge positive, really.
Yeah, I'd say actually, I forgot to say the European Investment Bank. So I won't get into the details of how these funds, it's sort of part public-private sort of financing, but they have huge investments. Anyway, European rental companies are starting to get funding for greening their fleets, for example. So I don't know if that exists in the UK or not, but
So Merrill,
it could be.
hear that and cry. Should we be adopting these sort of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, the more weight we've got behind these things, then the easier it makes it for us. Because we're kind of individual companies, and there's a big group there.
Fight on everyone's behalf.
Rachel, can we learn from Europe?
Oh, yes, I think so. Yeah, I think we can. I mean, I haven't given it enough thought to really pass an opinion, I think. That's the truth. But it doesn't sound like a bad idea, does it?
I think if it's done well, it's a good thing. If it's sort of bad legislation, then it doesn't work so well. But they're really trying to drive sustainable investments, sustainable activities, and getting companies to improve.
There are pots of money out there for sustainable. If you're introducing a new product and it's down to R&D and all that kind of stuff, there are pots of money out there, but they're not really that easy to find.
What was in the UK, you mean?
Oh yeah. You know, if it's a new product, you're spending time, energy on R&D. I mean, Groundhog use it all the time, and I think partners MHM, as much there are tax credits and money if you are spending a lot of time on R&D and the staff and all that kind of stuff. Then you can get quite a large.
You can
I
capitalise
think
on it.
Trimmy, I think also get quite a bit on that just by doing the R&D. So there is there, but it's not easy to find. I don't think.
In that, we did a survey with a company called Lectura. I don't know if some of you probably know it. But we found that the biggest challenge is really cost, and what companies are looking for is financial help and incentives to transition. Really.
I'm guessing you have a better pool of funds in Europe than possibly we do in the UK.
I think it's quite a large pool. I was at the Green Apple Awards earlier on this year in London, and I met up with a gentleman who deals in that, and he says it is a large pool of money that they really do want to.
Which nobody seems to know about.
Does everybody know about it? Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah, and if you do apply for it, and if I think you can use an expert to help you put the case together. There is quite a bit of cash. You'd be surprised how much is out there.
Well, that's positive news. Let me just ask you, we're not quite at the end, but we're sort of coasting towards the end. Well, let me ask you in ESG terms, for want of a shorthand, where you want to be in 3, 4, 5 years' time, and do you think you will be there? What will hold you back if not?
So I think it's a good time with that question to reflect on how far we've come as an industry. So, like 20 years ago, and we'll remember this probably in the room, we'd see out there Tier 2 machines and Euro 3 lorries, and these things used to throw out plumes of smoke on our sites. If you fast forward to today, we've got Tier 5 machinery, Euro 6 lorries, hybrid machinery, and these pieces of equipment are more than 11 times more fuel efficient than the old counterparts. And not only that, saving hundreds of tons of carbon as well at the same time. Also, further to that, 20 years ago, we didn't have eco-driver training, but now we do. And we train thousands of operators on efficient driving techniques, again, reducing carbon across the industry and across our company. 20 years ago, we didn't have solar panel technology, but now we do. And we've got over 400 of these on our Hemel head office. We actually use them to charge up our electric machinery. So you could say that's a net zero hire. And then finally, 20 years ago, we didn't have machine control technology, but now we do. And the great thing about machine control technology is that it helps us get the job done 46% quicker, with 38% less machine hours and 34% less fuel. In fact, the most remarkable thing about machine control is that it helped the A14 project get the job done 9 months ahead of schedule. And in the process, saving thousands of acres of rainforest. So that's how far we've come. So for the next 5 years, I think it's going to be a remarkable change in terms of ESG. We're just going to see a whole new world
What
innovation,
specifically
technology,
are you planning on putting into
training.
place?
Well, I think we're already doing it. I think our drivers, we're making an immediate impact with our economical driving. The technology's moving waves forward, and we've got our milestones coming up with HVO. We've got our, the solar panels going to be every depot, rain capture tanks. We've got a whole wave of things coming
And is
up.
anything getting in the way?
I think the only thing getting in the way is education. So that's, you need to get out to your workforce and you need to get them in a workshop and you need to ask for their ideas. You need to ask the people closest to the work, what can you do in your work to make a difference in digital, net zero? We've done that. They came up with lots of ideas. They said, well, why don't we have an anti-idling policy in the yard? Brilliant idea. Why don't we recycle our PPE? Obvious, isn't it? But no one had thought of it. What else did they say? Plant a tree for every machine we buy, or plant trees for every machine we buy. But you get that engagement when you get your people together, and then you give them a reward. We've done it. You reward them. You make them heroes in your company, and then all of a sudden it spreads. It's contagious, and now you've got 1,000 people going for it.
So I hate to use the word, but it's a kind of holistic approach.
Yeah.
Getting everyone on board,
You've got to.
training,
You have
finance.
to. You need to listen to their ideas. Who are we to tell this person who's doing a job every day how to make it digital net zero? I'm not doing your job. You tell me. You're who better to ask? So it's working. It's working for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Genquip Groundhog, 5 years' time, what will you have achieved in ESG terms?
We'll have our carbon energy plan in full working order. We'll know where we're aiming. Everyone talks about planting trees, but I think you have to do that in a structured manner. So we've actually joined CONFOR, Confederation of Forestry. So we will become foresters as well in the coming years.
So you'll actually grow
yes,
stuff as well.
And in 25 years, we might even make a bit of money selling the logs. Who knows? So there's, as you said earlier, you can always make money from. Why not? So yeah, we join CONFOR, and once we know our number, we'll know how many plants to treat, how many trees to plant to offset every groundhog. Not just offsetting. Our way forward with our carbon energy plan is to change the way we manufacture, we use steel in this heavy industry at the minute. Are we going to continue with that? I don't know. 5 years is a long way down the road, but we change the way we buy our goods, more in at the same time, assessing our suppliers more, so reducing our carbon footprint at source at the manner. This is a whole thing of what the University of Sheffield has helped us with. They've given us some tips of how we can change straight away. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I mean, the master's student told us we should be using, I think it's because we're from Wales, you can tell by my accent, that we should be insulating with sheep's wool. Which is obviously less, but I don't think it's quite the right product yet and cost-wise, because what we've always got to remember is that there's a cost implication in hire, and until everybody gets on board with a higher rate, then there's always going to be a little bit. That's where we aim, and obviously our main target is to have solar and battery technology in every unit because believe it or not, we still sell standard welfare even to this day. So they will come off the line for sure.
Huw, before you tell me what you've got planned over the next 5 years, I simply have to ask you, because I'm fascinated by it, that you're advising the American Rental Association, which is frankly gobsmacking. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we're actually going over there in February, I think. But they, it's for their members, it's not exactly an issue, but for some of the bigger companies over there, they've started to raise it.
What, ESG?
ESG issues. And so, they saw what we've been doing, and they
see a value in it?
They basically were pretty, they were where we were 5 years ago, probably. Right. So they wanted to very much understand what we've done, why we've done it, what's happening, and I think they wanted to steal our things, to be honest.
Oh,
But,
that's amazing. So what's coming up in the next 5 years for you?
probably the next big focus is on people. Our convention next year in Maastricht in Holland will be focusing on people. So that will mean attracting, retaining, developing staff. We'd like to see, as has been discussed, we'd like to see the industry be an attractive one for people, younger people who want to make a difference in the world. There are certain issues, obviously, we hear quite a lot. It's often associated with construction, and therefore it's seen as industry for men, so it can be very difficult to hire women, for example. So we'd really like it to be a much more, an industry that is attractive to all the talent that it needs, and we would want to then equip, our members and the industry with the knowledge, tools, whatever it would be, for them to succeed with that.
Rachel, the next 5 years, apart from total global domination, obviously.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've got a 5-year product innovation plan. So we've got lots more products that we will be supporting the construction and infrastructure market with, of course, and the sole purpose is so that you don't have to worry about that. So we can support you with all the power needs you need on site, and it will be renewable, so that you don't have that's just one thing you won't need to worry about, because we're sorting that out for you. I won't tell you about the product innovation plan, because that would be silly. So when the products are ready, I'll tell you about them. Yeah, I know, I don't think that will wash. But I will share it with you when the products are ready. But when it comes to, because that was a really boring answer, so I'll give you a bit more flavour of something a bit more exciting. With this report, so we have been awarded gold accreditation for our CSR, our ESG commitments. That is the highest accolade you can get.
Whom?
By the people that do the accreditation.
Okay.
So this is the CSRA accreditation body. They're the only ones that exist, and they will benchmark your organisation, and then they will tell you, and then they will grant you an award if you are worthy of one. And they also will tell you how to improve it. So we've got actions in here that we need to work on. We've got plans in place, and we've got to work a small working group that makes sure that we're committing to the actions that we say we are going to ultimately hit that goal. But I think, if I think more broadly just about the sector in general, I think what would be nice, not just at Prolectric, but what would be nice is if we were able to just make this a little bit more simple. So I know people kept on referencing earlier SDGs, and I don't know if everyone knows what they are, but they're the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to talk about these because I love this story. I've got a little story I want to tell you. And there are 17 SDGs, and when the UN committee put together, you probably know this story better than me, so if I get it wrong, just swear with it. And when they put together the SDGs, everyone was like, wow, these are brilliant, but you're going to ostracize the whole world, because it's the to-do list for the planet, the 17 goals. And everyone was thinking, well, these are brilliant, but you've got 160-something targets beneath them all, and then you've got even more KPIs. How are you going to communicate this information? So Richard Curtis, the guy that wrote Bridget Jones and For Wedding and the Funeral, what else did he do? You know.
He did some of the Blackaders.
Did he?
Yeah.
He did Blackadder, yeah.
So you didn't expect Richard Curtis to come out today, did you?
Nope.
So Richard Curtis was like, right, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make these more accessible. So then he went to see his buddy, who's a designer in Sweden. Can't remember his name. Jacob something. And Jacob and him sat in a room together, and then Jacob just did these little sketches of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, when you see the goals, the little icons that he's crafted, they're really cute, and you just know immediately what they stand for. And now all of us get it, because it's so basic. I would like it if, this is a very long-winded way of me just wangling that story in, but what would be really nice is if we could just, next time we all come together, we're not talking about this ESG as if it's some sort of parasite or like some sort of random foreign body, but we're all just doing it, and it's just a little bit more common. And I think that would just be, I think that's just from us just not using all these fancy pants words and making things overly complicated all the time.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for that.
No worries.
a sentence each, which will be tough, a sentence each, a call to action for everybody here. It might be your top tip. It might be a very short story. It might be something you'd like them to do. Rachel, you're popping up and down. Go on.
I'm ready.
Go.
The IPCC most recently said that we are at code red for humanity. So if we just do one thing, let's just make doing good for the planet, doing good for people, just make it easy and just do it, and then your profits will follow.
Excellent. Huw.
Yeah, I was just going to keep it simple. I'd say just get ahead with it, and because it'll be good for your business in the end.
Peter?
Just for us, for our industry, is just do what right, but do what works as well.
Yeah. And that's going to be different for everybody. Yeah. No.
I've got 2 calls to action.
Of course you have.
Yeah, I have. So the first one, I just wanted to ask everyone in the audience, show of hands, who has plant operators or lorry drivers that work for them? Okay, brilliant. So what we're doing on the 1st of December is we're laying on an eco driver training event where your operators can come to our Hemel head office and they can be put through an NOCN approved ticket, which they will receive at the end of the training if they pass. And we're laying that on free of charge for the industry, just to get things moving and reduce carbon. So yeah, please, we've got a QR code over there. Please, before you go, get involved. Love to see you there.
And Paul Lynch was kind enough to tell us about that.
Exactly,
well.
yeah. So please get involved, 1st of December. Right, the other one I've got is, so we hold a digital and a sustainability alliance. We do it every couple of months. And what we do is we bring sustainable suppliers in who've got new, latest sustainable products. And we bring in tier 1 contractors and we discuss and debate the use of these products. And the good ones we adopt and the bad ones we drop. So if you're a manager, a leader, you want to push this agenda forwards for construction, for our industry, then again, sign up, QR code over there, and we'll be holding our next event in the next couple of months. And it's free again, open to all, just our way of pushing the industry forward. So thank you.
Merrill, you're a naughty boy, but it's been an absolute delight, delight talking to you, Merrill and Peter and Huw and Rachel. Thank you so much indeed. As always, I could talk all afternoon. I could pick your brains massively more, but we've run out of time. You're welcome either to stay sitting or to leave the stage as you like, because just to close proceedings, I'm going to ask Chris Castley to come up and finish the day. But let's have a round of applause for our guests.